constitutionalists. And he runs the Article 5 Center. He's written a book. I brought some of the books that I've read. This is the Law of Article 5. This lays out for the legislatures exactly what they need to do once they've passed the resolution, and they go through the process of building the delegation. I brought about 6 copies of what do we call this? Amendment. It's a template for creating a commissioner. Not a faithful delegate act, but that's something we'll talk about in a few minutes. But to pull in, to provide the language that the legislators need to follow to, in fact, decide who the delegates are going to be to the convention, okay? Because our state legislators will be responsible for that in North Carolina. So this is the language of Article 5, okay? The Congress, when over 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution. 27 times. We have 27 amendments. Prohibition was pushed by the people, and then the reversal of prohibition was pushed by the people, okay? Or on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states shall call a convention for proposing amendments. I don't get to talk to people, and if anybody here, I mean, I'm here as long as we're here to talk about this, but if anybody here believes that we're calling for a constitutional convention, I want to know where you're learning that from, because Article 5 is so clear. Okay?
Your announcement that before you changed the screen said Constitutional Convention.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, Convention of States.
Convention of States. That's not a constitutional convention. We are a convention of states. And the event will be a convention of states. It will be an amending convention of states.
You know what, it might be better if you said Article 5 Convention. People might.
It's used, that's used a lot.
I mean, it's common language. It's what our website is and so forth. I mean, there is, the reason that I think we have to go to our founding documents. And we go to our founding documents to see that there's nothing, even their discussions in 1787 were about not calling for a constitutional convention. I'm going to get to that, okay? There's nothing in the Constitution that allows the American people, through the state legislatures, or any way other than through a revolution, to get rid of the Constitution we have right now. There's nothing in the Constitution that allows for that. So let me get to that, because I'll show you that. So the thing I do want to tell you, and this is where this information comes from. I'm not going through all the history, but there's you know, I haven't actually, I should need to Google this. Federalist 85? Say again?
I need to read those bad.
They're hard to read though.
They're kind of weighty.
Yeah, they're very hard to read. Okay, if you want to really understand Article 5, I really recommend this book. And it's not going to be long before I go ahead and buy the newer one. He's got a new edition that actually addresses some of the objections a little more deeply. This is like a handbook for operating an Article 5 convention. Okay? This again, Federalist 85, the very last one, Hamilton talks extensively about calling a convention of states for amending the Constitution. And so, what's so interesting to me, and you know, I mentioned before, I didn't know much about history. I didn't follow the news very much. I never watched the news when I was raising my daughter and taking care of my husband and his business and everything else. I was too busy raising my daughter, taking care of my business and my husband's business and so forth and so on. And I, as a leadership consultant, I have a profile that measures how interested are you in learning. Okay? There's 7 passions that drive what we do. I am not a high theoretical, but I actually was thinking a few minutes ago when I was talking to you about the Baptist faith and how it's different and so forth. I was thinking, you know, maybe I need to take it again. Maybe I've become more theoretical because I've begun to learn these kinds of things. Okay? Because what's so interesting to me is that the Constitution was signed. Does people know what day the Constitution was signed? September 17th, 1787.
Yeah.
On September 15th, 1787,
Nickel time.
it is in Madison's notes that Mason stood up and said, as the proposing amendments is in both cases, this is the easier way to say it. I think this is in my document. I'm going to give you 2. dependent on Congress, okay? No amendments of any kind will ever be obtained by the people if the government should become oppressive, as he believed that they would
Oh, I
become. Okay? Mason stood up to his colleagues 2 days before the convention, the Constitution was signed, and said, if we don't give the people the right, meaning through the states, to call for a convention, to propose amendments to the convention, and to then ratify them with no involvement from the national government, because there's no involvement from Washington in any of what we're doing. Okay, Congress has one action, and if they don't do it, we can get around it. Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment. He's saying to his colleagues, we know the government's going to get out of control. They're going to get power, and they're going to become greedy, and they're going to get out of control. We have to give the people a way to take over that doesn't require a revolution, which means guns. Okay? I believe in our Second Amendment rights. I don't have a gun yet. I'm probably getting one soon, but in any event, it just fascinates me that he said that. And do y'all know what happened afterwards? How many people have read any of the history of the Constitution and know how political it was? Okay? It was, they say, people who really know that kind of history say it was as bad as the politics today. It was backstabbing, it was all kinds of debate. They passed the revision that you saw of Article 5 up there unanimously without discussion. They were 100% behind this decision. Okay? The second thing that happened is on the day, on that same day, I presume one was in the morning and one was in the afternoon, okay, but on that same day, September 15th, 1787, Roger Sherman from Delegate made a motion to further revise Article 5 to actually allow the states to call for a constitutional convention, okay? That one failed, okay? So that's our first sign of what the intent of our founders was. That's the first sign. When debating the Bill of Rights, he was in the first, Sherman was a representative in the first Congress, and when debating the Bill of Rights, Representative Sherman said, all that is granted by Article 5, and I'm sorry I put this in red, I wanted to make it stand out, and I realize now it's a bad idea.
Sorry.
Yellow would have been great, but it would not have been very patriotic. All that is granted by us by the Article 5 is that whenever we think it necessary, we may propose amendments to the Constitution. Not that we may propose or repeal the old and substitute a new.
Yeah.
That is his exact quote. So one of the things that one of my colleagues, I've got a colleague in the mountains, he's remarkable, and he's done more for COS than anybody else in our history in North Carolina. And he does a lot of these talks, and one of the things that he asks people who are really, really opposed is, if the intent of the founders was not to allow us to call for a convention to amend the Constitution in the same way Congress can do it, then what is the intent of all of this? And what's the intent? It's a question that doesn't have an answer. What is the intent? I mean, it's very, in my mind, it's very, very clear. So let's talk a little bit about other myths. Okay, so we're not calling for a constitutional convention. We're calling for an amending convention. Okay, another myth is, and this comes from directly from Representative George Cleveland in Onslow County. We don't need term limits. We have term limits. They're called elections.
I used to think that way.
Well, you know, after what just happened on November the 3rd, I don't think so, not so much. But before that, okay, before that, the number one determinant of elections is money.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way, okay? I have two ideas for the Constitutional Convention. I mean, excuse me, for the Convention of States, okay? I have two ideas. One of them is one bill, one act. One bill, one subject. One bill, one subject.
Mm-hmm.
No more porking,
Thank
okay?
you.
One bill, one subject. That's it, okay? Maybe I'll be asked to be a delegate. Probably not, and I think I will decline. But the other one is, and I don't know exactly how this would be done under the terms of our thing, so if it can't be, that's okay. But the other thing that I would love to see happen is that if you are going to run for office to represent me, and you live in New York, you can't give her money.
Exactly.
There you go.
I mean, come on,
Yeah, really.
what's that about,
Yeah.
okay? So that's all beside the point.
Or a different country.
Or other countries. So again, I've learned a lot, and these people that I've worked with in COS really know a lot more than I do. And one guy told me, and there's nothing, it's possible, okay? Let me go back to something real quick. I want to go back to the three things we're trying to do, okay? Implement term limits, impose fiscal restraints, and limit the scope and responsibility of the federal government. One of the objections of people, Keith Kidwell's big objection is, I'm not going to lose my Second Amendment right. Wherein implement term limits, impose fiscal restraints, and limit the scope and responsibility can the convention take anything away from the American people? They can't. All we can do is take it away from the government,
Mhm.
okay? Now, we're gonna talk about the runaway a little bit, okay? Because
Except
people say,
some people may say, I should be able to vote for who I want. You know, because even though there may be like, I mean, what kind of term limits are you talking about? And what if a young, fantastic senator, you know, what if somebody like DeSantis?
okay, let me,
I mean, I want him to keep going.
I do too, to a point, okay? So let me just tell you my take on it. I have a unique position to some degree because of what I've done professionally as a leadership consultant. First off, Mark Meckler is our founder, and he has said before, maybe we don't come out of convention with term limits. Maybe we just come out with fiscal restraints.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to come out of convention. There could be enough debate around that subject that there's a decision not to do that. I'm going to suggest that there's a way to put term limits in that works for everybody. And my way of doing that is grounded in two experiences I've had in my business, and others I've had, but two very specific ones. One, there was a trade association based here in North Carolina. It was run for 45 years by the same person. Okay? By the time that individual retired, they were so behind in technology, they had lost better than half their membership, and they almost didn't recover.
Yeah.
Okay? Number two, I worked with a team about 1.5 to 2 years ago for about 1.5 years. I guess it was about 3 years ago that I worked with them for about 1.5 years. And their biggest challenge was they didn't make very good decisions because they didn't change. The leadership team had all been together for 20 to 25 years. That was not good for that organization. Okay? Suppose what are senatorial terms are 6 years, is that right?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay? Suppose they get 4 terms. They get to give us 24 years. Maybe we give them 5, they get to give us 30 years. But nobody needs to do something for 40 years, in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Okay?
Levin has proposed 12, and that way it's 3 representative terms or 2 senatorial terms, or a combination that's still 12.
That's right.
Representatives are 2 years.
Right, but excuse me, 6 is what I meant to say. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Right.
So what he's talking about is Levin's book, The Liberty Amendments. Okay? Interesting story about this. My watch died, so somebody needs to keep me on my time. Interesting story about this. Mark Meckler and Michael Ferris founded the Homeschool Legal Defense Fund, and Patrick Henry College were discussing in 2013 starting this movement. Levin was writing this book at the same time. Just interesting fact.
Unbeknownst to each other?
I said, independently, they didn't know it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, Ferris was talking to Levin about what he and Mark Meckler were talking about. He said, oh, I'm writing a book about that. Okay? Now, would you say that maybe God had something to do with that?
Yeah.
See, I think it does. I think this is something that you know, I lead the state volunteers. I lead a volunteer call twice a month. We've had up to 100 people on that call. I have a leadership team that works with me now of 15 people. We started a year ago with 4, actually 4 with me. And I've got now 15 people that work with me doing things all over the state. We have communications people. We're still working on communications a lot. We still need to do a lot of work with that. But you know, one of the things I tell them again and again and again, if we do not, in fact, solve the problems of November the 3rd, what we're doing with COS is not going to matter.
Yeah.
Okay? When we do solve the problems of November the 3rd, because I do believe God's in charge, and I believe this country was formed under God, as we say in our Pledge of Allegiance, and God cares, and my phone has a little picture on it that says God wins, so every time I see it, I'm reminded that God wins, and He's going to win this battle because He's behind us. okay? There's too much happening in Maricopa County and Atrium County, and it's gonna come out, okay? The press is gonna do everything they can to stop it. But I read Trump's executive order from September 12th, 2018,
Yes.
okay? All these people are gonna get taken out. It's just a matter of when and enough time has to go by.
If they have not already.
Well, that's the question
That's
about
the
that.
question.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, but let's go back to this, okay? How many of you all, there was a Breitbart article about the fact that, in the 2020 election, big tech and, their employees gave, the Democratic Party 12 times what they gave the Republican Party, okay?
Yeah, it's-
But I'm sure it was the other way around too. It, you know, you could say it's a certain industry,
Yeah, but I'm sorry, big tech's bigger than everybody else.
well, you're right,
Chuck,
and they're more
you're right.
correct.
And, you know, they're supposed to be nonpartisan.
That's right.
Okay? So, you know, we can go on with that. Myth 3 is the chaos, okay? The liberals are gonna take over, we're gonna lose everything, okay? Well, let's speak first to 34 states. I mean, CMS has been working on this since 2013. They've only gotten 15 state legislatures to fully pass the resolution. It's not a bill, it's a resolution, okay? The nice thing about that is it means the governor can't sign it. We don't need the governor,
Yay.
we don't need the president, we don't need Congress, we don't need the Senate. Up in Washington, that is, we just need the North Carolina House of Representatives and the North Carolina Senate, that's it, okay?
So that is set in stone, even if, by the time we get there, if we do, that there's new senators that don't
Well, they can
necessarily-
rescind it, somebody can rescind it,
Okay.
any Senate can rescind an organization. That's why one of the things we tell our volunteers is, when we get through the Senate, our work doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Okay? Our work doesn't stop. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Let's finish going through this real quick. I would like to ask a question, and it's often a rhetorical question because people can't really come up with one. I learned this from Mark Meckler. Okay? Let's say that this happens. Let's just say that a proposed amendment comes out of the convention to take away our Second Amendment rights. Okay, let's just propose that happens.
Yeah, right.
Okay? Tell me that we can't find 13 states to say no. And I'm in church, so I didn't use the word I might put in front of them. Okay? 13, it only takes 13 states to stop anything we come up with from happening. Because you've got to get 38 states to approve it. This is a long-term project. Okay? It's moving way faster. We have gotten through the House in the last two weeks. We've gotten through the House in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Wisconsin.
All right.
Wow.
Okay? Today, in North Carolina, a woman, I wish I could say her name, just because I don't remember it, and it's on my phone, but a woman in Currituck, North Carolina, was the 10,000th petition signer in North Carolina. In 2020, we had 14,000 petition signers for the entire year. Every year before that, we were 12,000 to 10,000 below, okay? We've gotten 10,000 petition signers through 1035 this morning, okay? People care, and we've got 400 active volunteers. We have easy things for people to do, making phone calls. The most fun thing that we ever do, really, is making phone calls to our supporters. There are people, some people who signed our petition some time ago, whose health is not good now, so they're just at home listening to this horrible, horrible news. One woman, when one of our volunteers called her, started crying because he gave her hope again. Okay, and so we're able to do some remarkable stuff. But this is not going to happen. First off, technically, every time Congress meets, it's a convention. Okay, and are they not already out of control?
Yeah.
Okay, they've been out of control in Washington for a while. How many of you all have ever been to a GOP convention? Was it total chaos? Sometimes, but not. I mean, not like they're talking about here. Okay. Here's the other thing. Okay, there are some people that we're going to talk about support us. I pray about this as well as other things, and you know, I want David Barton to be one of the delegates out of Texas. okay?
Mhm.
I want, Mark Levin to be a delegate out of wherever he lives, if he's still in New York or wherever he might live, okay? I want Rod Nadelson to be a delegate out of Colorado, okay? I want to put a rule in the delegate things from North Carolina, and I'm gonna be part of putting that together, that says legislators can't be delegates. It has to be good, solid Americans,
Yes.
okay? And so, you know, who might they be in North Carolina? I don't know. We don't need to go there at this point, but that is the next thing that we do, is we start working with the legislature to begin the process of defining things. And I'm gonna talk again in a minute about the delegate default bill. One of the things people say all the time, there's a woman in Raleigh, that every time something comes up on a convention state resolution, because, you know, the House passed one for US term limits on March 4th. They passed ours on May 5th, but they passed one for US term limits on March 4th. On March 4th, she sent out a text to everybody, says, they don't follow the Constitution we have now. Why are they gonna follow the amendments that we put together? Well, first off, they may not, but then, you know, we're gonna have our National Guard, we're gonna find a way to make sure they go into place, because, I mean, it'll happen, I believe. But has anybody ever seen that that brown book that you see up here? That brown book is the Constitution we have today.
Oh.
That little blue book is the Constitution you and I all love. Okay? The one I carry around in my pocketbook all the time, and so forth. That brown book is what they do. And did y'all know that every time they print that, they save, I can't remember what the number was, 1,000 or 2,000 blank pages for what they're gonna add to it between now and the next printing. Okay? They're out of control up there. And so they follow the annotated Constitution. Michael Ferris has written about that, Rod Nadelson's written about that, and so forth. Okay? There are 4 alternatives that we think to this idea to save our country. Okay? So the first one is that we keep trying the same stuff we're already doing. Okay? Everybody know what Einstein's definition of that is, right? That's right. That's right. Not gonna happen. Okay? The next one is that hope some solution is going to be found in the Constitution, like nullification, which I'm trying to think who did it, but several people have written that. I mean, nullification isn't an option, from what I understand. I haven't studied it a lot. We don't do anything, which is the same thing as number 1. Okay? Or we use the process our founders gave us. We use Article 5. Because again, it's what they gave us. It's so let me talk about. I'm gonna talk about supporters in a minute, but let me talk about one of the next things that we do. In this document over here, again, people can take and if you want stuff and we run out, I'll have to just email them to Linda and she can email them to you. The next step that we'll go through with the legislature is something called the Faithful Delegate Act. I like to call it the Delegate Default Bill. Okay? And when you put the word bill or act on something, it becomes a law. West Virginia, their legislature, we try not to do this because legislators get caught up in the details of the Delegate Default Bill, but they did decide to start working on the Delegate Default Bill before the legislature passed the resolution. They were discussing a fine of $500,000 for any delegate that went to the convention on behalf of West Virginia that brought up any subject that was not allowed under the definitions in our resolution. Okay? I don't know that we need to do that, but I do think they need to be pulled out of the convention and brought home. You're not fulfilling the responsibility. So those are the things that the North Carolina legislature will work on next, is a delegate default bill, or again, the positive way to say it is the Faithful Delegate Act. I'll interject something real quickly. Okay, Mark Meckler, when we had a Judiciary Committee meeting that we passed, and Mark Meckler, who's our founder, came in for that meeting, and the committee room was emptied, and our legislators stayed, and we had a little meeting, and we had a celebration, and so forth and so on, and we had some discussion about what was going on in Washington. And Mark Meckler talked about something that we as conservatives need to learn to do a little bit better. We're such practical people that when we talk, we tell the truth. Okay? And, you know, everybody knows what HR one's called, right? What's it called?
It's called the Don't Bother Voting Anymore bill.
It's called the For the People Act,
Yes.
okay?
Oh.
Who doesn't want the For the People Act?
Yeah.
The people?
See, at COS, we call that the Death of Democracy Act,
Yes,
because it is the death of Democracy Act,
exactly.
okay? But the one thing that they've done really, really well on the other side of the aisle is language.
Oh,
They do language really, really well. So, so let me talk a little bit about, and I will send you an email with these links, okay? I am working really hard, like begging almost daily. We have some donors, some really big ones in North Carolina. I know one of them. Not one of them that I know is really big in the John Locke Foundation. And I want the John Locke Foundation, which is now merged with Civitas, if you didn't know that. And Donald Bryson is the executive director, is the president of John Locke Foundation. I want them to come out and say, do this. Because there are some legislators that will change their mind if they do that.
Okay.
They're probably not gonna do that anytime soon. However, back in January of 2019, after a town hall event we had in Raleigh, when Mark Meckler was here and we got him a meeting with Donald Bryson. Donald Bryson wrote an article on the Civitas website. I want you guys, how many of you all are native North Carolinians?
Almost.
Okay, I can't wait for you to read this if you didn't know it. Did you know that the state of North Carolina was largely responsible for the language in the Bill of Rights? The legislatures in North Carolina are largely responsible for the language in our Bill of Rights. They would not sign the Constitution until the Bill of Rights were put in, because there wasn't anything in the Constitution to protect the rights of the people. And Bryson talks about that in the first blog post up there. The second one is just came out May 10th. That may have come, I have to check my email, that may have come out in response to an email. I emailed him about Mark Meckler being there and he was available for lunch. The minute Mark Meckler wasn't available anymore, he didn't have time for me. And that's okay. I'll keep pushing at the national level. One of our really, really big donors that's very involved in the John Locke Foundation called our legislative liaison on the national level and said, what can I do? And I told the guy I work with on a paid basis, his name's Grant, he's out of Florida. I said, I was on my walk this morning and I heard myself screaming in my head at you, who told me that yesterday, screaming in my head, get the John Locke Foundation to support us, because this gentleman can do that. But I will send you those two things as well as the files that we have. So let me tell you about the people who endorse us, okay? Washington did, Reagan did, Scalia did, okay? Levin has written a book about us. Hannity, I actually tried to call Hannity this afternoon. I got through one time, but by the time I got through, I was upset and they wouldn't let me through. But I've decided I'm going to work on calling him right now, and when I get to him, I'm going to tell him who I am, tell him what's been happening in North Carolina, and say, what do you think we can do to make to get this out on the national stage? Because we need to get it out on the national stage. We are one of the best kept secrets in the country. Okay, we really are. But again, we've had 10,000 petition signers since the first of the year, so the word's getting out. Ben Shapiro has supported us. These three guys, who's the first one?
DeSantis.
Yeah, that's DeSantis, that's right.
Abbott.
And Rand. And I don't know if you know this yet, but this guy just came out and endorsed us. Okay? He's from North Carolina. There's actually a major opposer in the mountains. I mean, she's very influential. Some of you all know who she is, who is adamantly opposed to us, but she worships the ground he walks on. And so I made a phone call today and said, would you please have him, who has her phone number in his phone, would you have him text her and say, this is really important, we need you to get behind it. So we'll have to see if he does that or not. Okay? There's another big announcement. I told Linda, but I can't tell everybody, but there's another big name person from North Carolina that's going to come out in support of us very, very soon. Okay? So I think, these are just a couple of quotes that I use these quotes a little bit intentionally because I think they're really thought-provoking, okay? Ferris has said, a true constitutionalist is going to use the entire Constitution that was intended. which has got to include Article 5. Okay? Article 5 is clear in the language, and lots of people have studied it so that we know how we can make it work. Okay? Nadelson, not as well known, but probably truly is the world's most knowledgeable person when it comes to the Constitution and Article 5. Again, he wrote the book, the law of Article 5 and so forth. And then the last one is David Barton. Okay? David Barton has been behind us for a long time. So I want to now, how are we on time? Oh, there's the clock right back there. You said you wanted to finish by 7:30? Or is that to go to snacks before 7:30?
Either one.
Okay.
If you're finished, we can ask questions down there.
We can, but we can't ask it as a group. So let's do 5 or 10 minutes of questions as a group. What questions do you all have?
Do you have the petition here where we can sign?
I have the computer. I'll put it on the hotspot. I'll give it to you. You can do it right then. Then one of our great volunteers will follow up with you if you want to get involved. We'd love to have you get involved. I'll just tell you this real quick. We have a great app called COS Action. And one, it's got great news feeds on it. You get to read all the feeds out nationally. You get to read feeds out of North Carolina. You can read feeds out of other states, blog posts and things that are being written locally. And it has a really neat tool called Tell Patriot. We can make. I actually made 47 phone calls hour and an hour one day. You know, I multitasked. You know, I have my phone and have my headphones on, and so anyway. So yes, I can pull my computer up while we're having a snack, and you can sign it. Yes, ma'am.
Can't anybody can, either side can do this, right?
Absolutely.
Okay,
It just takes 34 states to get it done.
but they don't have 34 states.
They don't. They don't. See,
So
that's
we
the
need
other
to
thing.
act now.
That's the way I feel about it. Okay, so here's what my prayer is. Okay, I'm real specific sometimes in my prayers.
Yes,
I
You
think
have
God
to
wants us to be done.
he does.
Okay, I go, okay, God, when the election fraud comes back, have Donald Trump come back, have Donald Trump come out in support of convention states. We will then get it done.
Yes.
That's what I believe. And I just believe that it is part of the package. It's not the silver bullet, it's not the only bullet, but it is part of a total package that we, the American people, need to use to take back our country.
And you don't really know what's gonna happen. We could be on the road, and here we are on the COS road, okay? And then you find out something, and this is the way God works every time.
That's right.
You know, he's got a little detour. Hey, you need to speed it up and go this way and get back on the main. And you just don't know what's gonna happen.
That's
But
right.
the more people get educated, which is one of your goals.
Although it is one of our critical goals.
And there's a lot of organizations out there that are just educated. But that's how I see God work all the time.
And the thing, I mean, I'm certainly not glad things have gotten to the place that they are in our country, but there's a little part of me that says, this is God's intent for us to see the worst possible thing that could happen so that we can really get behind. And could anything at our convention be worse than what's happening right now? That's my thought. They can't do anything worse than what they're trying to do to us right now.
Correct.
Well, if you think about it, why we need to get it done now?
Say again?
Because they're gonna add 2 more states if they can.
Yeah.
That's the reason, that's exactly right, that's the reason we need to do it now.
It's gonna take 39 states.
That's right,
okay,
that's
to
right.
Get to 3/4.
Well, I marvel that it's taking us this long to get this done.
You said you have 15 or 13?
We have 15.
Okay.
We have 15.
But
But-
there's a lot of states that have passed in the House but not in the Senate, correct?
That's actually true, and some the other way around, because, we were a Senate and a House. I presume that most of them, again, I actually thought about, if anyone knows where this is, I'd love to know where it is. I don't know if our Constitution states that anything passed in a session, anything filed in a session has to be passed in that session, or if it's a rule of the General Assembly. But again, we passed in the Senate in 2017, but that doesn't matter. We have to pass in the Senate again, because we have to do it all. And I'm a little worried. I wake up in the morning, I'm not a morning person, but I love getting up at 6, okay? I love being up at 6. I love getting up at 6. So I have this dog that's figured out when the 3rd alarm goes off, you need to come lick mommy. Okay, he's so smart. He really has figured out when that one goes off, I need to get her attention. Well, one of them is WQDR. I love their music, and they are the last station that I am aware of that when they go on the air officially with their personalities at 6 a.m., they play the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh, all right.
So that's the second thing. The first thing I hear when I wake up is American Soldier by Toby Keith. I sing every word without thinking about it. And the second thing I hear is the Star Spangled Banner. But on Sunday morning, I let myself sleep till 7. And at 7, Don Curtis is on the air. Okay? Don Curtis is part of the liberal media, and he had the executive director of Common Cause North Carolina. I think we got to get this thing to the Senate between now and September. Because in September, they're going to be working on redrawing our district lines because we're getting another
Yeah.
representative. And once they go there, we won't be able to get their attention. Now, we have until the end of the short session. But, you know, we've got some things in our back pocket. One of the things we have in our back pocket is that Phil Berger is a supporter, and he's also very, very responsible, if you will, at the GOP state level for the fundraising and all kinds of things like that. And we've got some donors that support the GOP and support us that are going to talk to him and say, make this happen. So I don't like that money does that, but I know that money does that. And so if it does it for other people, let's let it do it for us. And so that's one of the things we're hoping. We did have 4 people vote against us in 2017, and there's only 28 senators compared to 22 Democrats. So we've got to turn 2 of those 4 at least. We're hoping that they're turning on their own because of what's happening in the country.
Yeah.
But one in particular, I'm not sure we're going to turn. I'll keep looking for national figures to call her
What
to.
do you, how do you answer this, there is no such thing as the Convention of States under Article 5?
It's states,
Let's go back.
it's just,
I should throw it away. Hold on. Oh, no, it's not gonna let me restart it. It's very clear in Article 5. The language is very clear. Actually, let me come.
Congress can do amendments.
It's not-
or-
I can restart it. You want me to restart it?
No, that's all right. Article 5. No, I didn't put it in here. No, yeah, I did, okay. The Congress, whenever 2/3 of both houses shall deem it necessary, shall propose amendments to this Constitution, okay? That's what Congress does, okay? Or, on the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the several states, Congress shall call a convention for proposing amendments. Okay? It's very clear in
That's
the
if
language.
they will or not.
Say again?
What if they don't want to?
There, I did not pull this article up, it's been a little while since I've read it, but that won't matter, we just go around it. Okay? Because they're not fulfilling their responsibilities. So this is a document, this is the one that I just took the talking points and the stuff that I have in here. Again, it's very text heavy, but it basically gives a little bit more detail, but it's mostly a repeat of this. So there's, I think, 16 copies. I know there's some couples here, so you can just take one of them. So other questions?
Because it says here the only thing that states can do is apply for a request.
Right, we apply, but we can, if Congress doesn't respond to us, we can step up and make it happen.
The states can come together and
Yeah.
have their own convention of
Yeah.
That's
amendments.
what this is, yeah. Congress gets to do nothing about it at all.
Well, they cannot
See,
stop us in any way.
I think the attitude in this country, from the president all the way down to a little commissioner in a 10,000 population city, we can't do anything.
And they're wrong.
I just,
And that's
But
what we need to
people
show
don't
them.
Realize it, even to me as a sovereign soul, you know, you can't do that. God has given me these rights.
That's right.
But
yeah.
So we just have to continue the work of educating people.
And see, another thing is, I hate the left media,
Oh,
but I'm
everybody does.
beginning to hate the right. Because all they're doing is putting a lot of fear in us.
And
They're gonna take over our country. I mean, I know they're trying to motivate us.
Who, you talking about like things like Fox News or?
Heck
Yeah,
yeah.
no, yeah. But see, they're not right anymore.
Well, what I mean
They're
is,
they're
they-
source over 60% of them.
they come out and
Epic
say
times,
all this
man.
stuff to put the fear
Absolutely.
in us, but then they don't turn around and say, but the Constitution says, I mean, Mark Levin does, obviously, and probably Tucker.
Right. But they're all supporters of us, and
Yeah.
one of the things, actually,
And
I'd love to see it. Is Tucker on this
I mean, I
list?
hear people on the street say stuff, and I'm right in their face. Do you realize what you just said? They are nothing
Yeah,
unless we give them the power.
that's exactly right. And that's the thing, is that they've taken the power away from us.
And that's what's happening, I think what's happening a lot around the country is that you've got your Board of Education, you've got your sheriffs, because the sheriff is the ultimate protector of his county.
Yeah, and the one in Wake County won't let me have a gun permit.
I don't know how what is Sheriff, I know his name, Pierce.
Yeah.
Is he part of, it's like a convention of sheriffs? He is a member.
he has a
Because
survey.
supposedly the leader of that organization has the emails of 30,000 sheriffs. So I hope that includes everybody.
He has assured me twice that he doesn't work for Cooper, I started to say Stooper, excuse me, and he most definitely does not work for Biden.
Okay.
He works for
Us.
People,
Yeah.
good. Other questions?
And he will call a posse if he needs to.
Yes.
I've told him,
Oh, I've
I've given
already
him my
talked
phone
to him
number.
about it.
Uh-huh.
Really?
Is,
The Granville County Sheriff is helping some of our COS supporters establish their own militias.
Good,
Because they want to do it right.
yeah.
They want to do it right, so they've gone to the sheriff to talk to them. We can't do anything like that in Wake County. I mean, I keep thinking about moving back to the eastern part of the state, but hadn't done it yet. Still, I got a 90-year-old mother who lives in Raleigh, I gotta stay with
She's not in Durham.
her. I'm not done with it. Any other questions?
Not a question,
Mhm.
but if I could just put my 10,000% support behind this, we've got to get involved. This is our parachute, and the plane's on fire. And I firmly believe George Mason was inspired, as were the rest of the founders too. This is among the many other things that we still can do peacefully, which I'll be speaking on the 12th. 12 things we can do peacefully. I'll tell you about that rally in just a moment later. But this is one of, I think, the most important steps we can do. I wish it were proceeding faster. If maybe once we get to 20 states, the snowball will roll faster
I hope so.
exponentially. But please, tell everybody you know and ask them to tell everybody they know. And I'll be glad to, you probably get inundated with calls, and I'm not an expert, but I've been behind this since the beginning. And I would like to offer my phone number to any of your friends, relatives, whoever have questions, concerns. We've got to do this.
You got a question?
Thank you for coming and clearing up some things for me.
Good. Do you have any questions about what we talked about?
No, I we recall.
Okay. All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Besides the threat, or the people think that we're trying to change the Constitution, what other negative feedbacks are we getting from people
Well, that it's
about?
gonna be a runaway convention, that we can't control it, that the liberal mobs are gonna come in and take over.
That'll be
You know,
hijacked.
say again?
That'll be hijacked.
It'll be hijacked.
The date got changed
That's
because
cool.
of the gas
That's the
situation.
biggest thing I hear.
Oh, yeah. So my response to that is, okay, tell me one amendment that they can propose that we cannot find 13 states to stop. That's the answer to that question. They can't hijack it, okay? We are a civilized people, some of them are not, okay? Okay, I know that, some of them are not, and I'm not talking about the Democrats. I struggle a lot with the fact that we talk about Democrats and Republicans, okay? Because there are those Democrats and there are those Republicans, and then there are the rest of us that are in the middle,
Yeah.
okay? We've gotten to a point that we can't talk much if we're in the middle, but hopefully we'll undo that at some point in time. But we're civilized people. If we have to hire security, we'll hire security. I mean, delegates are gonna be chosen by the legislatures to go to this convention and have an organized discussion. And, you know, it's not Robert's Rules of Orders, but there's parliamentary procedure that's used all the time. It's gonna be used in this convention. We're not heathens. I mean, it's gonna be an organized activity. And again, if something happens that we just don't expect, all we gotta do is find 13 states to say, no, I'm not doing that. You wasted your time up there.
If they get 52, we'll need 14.
That's true, that's true.
And if they
Again,
get
I am
54,
still of the belief, and part of this is because I just, one, can't believe God let so many of us down. And number two, it could be part of his master plan. It's part of his master plan, we have to live with that too and work with that. But in any event, I look at I hear what I'm hearing, and again, I basically get my news now from Steve Bannon and what they're doing, and Sidney Powell and Michael Flynn and those folks. This is all gonna be turned around. It's all gonna be turned around. You know, as you might have heard, Mike Lindell said Trump will be back by August.
He said it a few times.
He said it multiple times, yeah. I've heard people say
He
he's gonna
does say it's his
inaugurate on
opinion.
July 4th. I do not know.
I think he's
do not know
scheduled
if
to
that's gonna
speak
happen.
somewhere July 3rd,
But I can still pray for it.
oh yes,
That's right.
day and night.
God is good.
That's right. Well, and sometimes I wish somebody other than Trump would rise up to be,
Yeah.
to be able to take care of things, because I feel like sometimes just his name invokes so much anger in people, that if we could have somebody else that could get what he's gotten done, again, we might be better off, but
DeSantis ain't gonna be the one.
no.
But anybody else that goes against the swamp, gonna treat him the same way they did Trump.
The-
Well, that's
That's
true.
true.
That's why we have to clear the swamp.
Well, look at the
That's
fellow
why we have
who
to
was 10,000 times better than President Trump.
Yeah,
Look what they did
really.
to him,
Yeah.
you know.
Who did you say?
The
Talking
second.
about Jesus.
Oh, yeah.